Welcome to Those Guys Sports. It's your boy Mike. I'm more somber than normal. I normally do a pretty good intro, but I'll try my best. I have my guest here, Jamar Hinds, writer extraordinaire. He does a lot of things, but Jamar, I think this is the worst time to do a podcast after a Raptors loss. We just finished watching the Raptors lose to the Miami Heat. I have a ton of thoughts. I know you do, Jamar. First of all, how's it going? How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't be I mean, I'm annoyed. But I can't be too upset because the Raptors, in terms of big picture expectations, are kind of where I thought they would be, right?
Yeah.
Hovering around 500, maybe a little bit over, maybe a little bit under. They're kind of in that ballpark. So, big picture, I can't be too upset. It's not like they're Detroit right now. So,
Or San Antonio.
or San Antonio, because I just learned that San Antonio's on a 15-game losing streak.
Yeah.
I was just focusing on Detroit, so that was kind of news to me. So, but if we're talking about this game, this was probably the second most frustrating game of the season. The most frustrating game of the season is still that debacle in Chicago when they blew the 17-point lead with 5 minutes left and kept jumping at DeRozan. This game didn't top that, but this game was frustrating considering the fact they didn't have Bam, they didn't have Tyler Hero. This was their Miami's 7th straight game with a different starting lineup. I believe they lead the league in like starting lineup changes. I believe they've done it 14 already, which is basically 70% of their games. And it was a very winnable game. And in a lot of ways, the Raptors, this was kind of a microcosm of the season. The beginning of the game was horrible. Right. Every open three Miami wanted, they took it. And then Darko had to call 2 timeouts. Then they finally get it going. You see the good Raptors.
Right.
Then you go back to the bad Raptors with just a flurry of turnovers in the third quarter.
Right.
And then they get back in the game again. It was so up and down, so roller coaster. And that's basically been the whole season. But I don't know why you're somber. But for me, and I tweeted this, I don't normally call players out. I'm pretty modest with this. I don't like especially singling out one particular player.
Yeah.
But man, this was a horrendous game for Dennis Schroder. It just was.
Horrendous.
It just was. And I'm not trying to trash his whole season because he's had a lot of good moments this season. I think he's filled in okay for Fred, taking over as a starting point guard. But if there was any game where you wanted to say, okay, you know what? Let's try something different in the starting lineup. Let's switch into Gary and have Dennis come off the bench. This was the game to do that because he hijacked the offense numerous times, even so bad that you don't normally hear Matt Devlin, Mr. Complete positivity, optimism. You don't hear him calling out a single player numerous times. And he was. Jack will do it every so often. But when Matt's doing it, and when I'm doing it, pretty bad. It's pretty bad. There's just possessions where he was just trying to get himself going, I guess, and it just wasn't working. There's even possessions where he was supposed to like swing the ball, even like Scotty would be pointing in a certain direction, and he would just drive into traffic, get stripped, try to split 2 players, and then if that wasn't bad enough, there was a crucial possession late in the fourth quarter. I'm sorry, I'm just going over everything, but
no, yeah.
There was a crucial possession in the second, near the end of the fourth quarter where it was 99-96 Heat, and I can't call it a closeout because I don't know what the hell it was, but he just side jumped Duncan Robinson, and then it was just an easy 3. And then right after, he just goes for another layup, misses it. How many shots did he take? He took 18 shots.
18 shots.
Scotty took 7. Scotty didn't have a good game either. Scotty took 17. OG and Pascal were really the 2 that were carrying along with Gary off the bench. And the way Pascal and OG were playing, they only had 13 shots apiece, and Dennis had 18. And you're the point guard. That's a problem. Because you should recognize that you got 2 of your main players going, and you should recognize that you need to get them going instead of trying to get yourself going. And especially OG, because he's the one that really got the Raptors back in this game in the first half. Well, after
Yeah.
Darko took his 2 timeouts, I think he went on a personal 8-0 run. He's making threes. He was driving. Like OG was having a hell of a game. And if I want to take away one positive from this game, Pascal went 11 for 11 from the line. He was drawing fouls. His mid-range shot was going. He made a three because he's been really struggling at that. I think
Oh
the
God.
last 10 games he was 5 for 52 from
And it
three.
was
And
a
people
corner
were like,
three where he's better at.
yes. Yes. And a lot of people were like, hey, you know what? Maybe he should stop shooting them. And I mean, like, I feel like he's made enough of them in his career where it's like, okay, he's just never going to shoot them again. Like, I'm not going to tell him to not stop shooting them. But basically, what I'm trying to say is you had other players going, and it felt like he was completely hijacking the offense. And this was an extremely winnable game because even when they tried to lose it, they would get back in the game by default.
Right. Miami. So the first question I have is who is Orlando Robinson? And like we know ball, we watch ball, we get it. But Orlando Robinson, his stat line is 15 points and 12 rebounds. And we get it. We all hate saying it. Heat culture is real. Okay. Heat culture is real. But come on.
I
Come on.
acknowledge heat culture. It's just that they say it so often, and it is, and then they wrote it on the court, they wrote it on the jerseys, and then that's when it starts to get corny because even that Pat Riley mantra, toughest, meanest. I don't remember the full thing, but basically that wasn't even from Miami. That was when he was with the Knicks. So it's just like, okay, this is getting kind of corny now. But no,
Incredible.
you're right. You're right. I mean, like heat culture is real
It,
because
it,
they just seem to find guys out of nowhere and they contribute.
I think that's the biggest thing. They contribute throughout the game. You're watching it, and you're right. Like ultimately, what did people expect? Did they expect 50 wins out of the Raptors? Like you didn't, and most
No,
people didn't expect that. But you expected them to be competitive, which they were competitive. Like you said, the issue that I think a lot of people are facing is, I think the probably the title of this video is going to be Raptors, and oh my God, Dennis. A lot of Dennis. Like, and then we don't want to call people out, especially because last year the conversation about Fred VanVleet was kind of getting a little weird.
and that's why I'm not trying to be toxic, but this was a horrendous game. It really was. It
Yeah.
really was.
And with Dennis, you're just thinking to yourself, like, Dennis, you're holding the ball a lot. Like, he doesn't, the whole 0.5, I don't really see it with Dennis because I feel like he has it for 10 seconds normally. And he's trying to break down the defense a lot. And it's just not working when you have a Pascal who's really good at the post, and you have a Scotty who, yeah, you're right. Scotty didn't have a great game. But in the fourth quarter, Scotty
Yeah,
was living up.
that's typically what Scotty does. I mean,
Right.
how many times have we seen this where it almost looks like he's sleepwalking through 3 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter he tries to get these things going. He did a little bit, still not your typical Scotty game. If you're just box score watching, 12 points, 11 boards, 5 assists. He's always gonna find 2 threes. He's always gonna find a way to stuff the stat sheet regardless.
Yeah.
But it's just at this point you want a little bit more from Scotty, but I mean, he just came off of what, a 29-9-5 game. He led the Raptors in scoring the last 3 games. So this is not really a game to rip on Scotty. It was just he didn't have it tonight. That
Right. And then
happens.
like Scotty Barnes, it's always like, what is your trajectory with Scotty Barnes? Like, who do you think he can be? I always think the best version of Scotty is a better shooting version of Draymond, but also you don't want to put a ceiling. He's still so young of what he can become. So it's like it's there. But to me, the best lineup that I saw while watching had Siakam, Barnes, OG, Gary, and Otto Porter. That was the best lineup I saw. And that's in my vision of this team would be not the starting unit, but that's the unit I would like to see more of. Having three guys who can shoot 40% with a Scotty Barnes and a Pascal, who Scotty's also shooting darn near close to 40% as well. But just having those five guys on, I think that's a matchup nightmare.
And you know what's funny? Otto Porter didn't even make a shot. He was 0 for 2 from the field and missed both of his threes. But you have to respect him as a floor spacer. And a lot of
Right.
times that's the issue with the Raptors, that they don't have enough spacing. He played 14 minutes, a steal, a block, a couple boards, and an assist. And like I said, 0 for 2 from the field. But it just, the floor was spaced. And even though he's not making anything, it still helps.
Right.
So
He's a plus 14. He had the highest plus minus on the team.
Exactly. So that's why sometimes you can't just look at the shooting numbers. And that's why a lot of times we talk about spacing so much, because even when you're not making shots, the threat of you being there, it just helps. And when you got guys like Pascal and Scotty who kind of need space inside the 3-point line to operate at their best, having a guy like Porter, a guy like Trent, and you know what? I'll give a shout out to Malachi and Precious. This is not the lineup you're talking about, but
Yeah.
I'll give a shout out to Precious and Malachi as well, because I thought they did a lot of good things, especially in the first half when the Raptors were getting back in the game and they moved on to their secondary lineup. Miami had a little bit of a zone going on, and I thought both guys, especially Malachi, made a lot of good decisions. You
Yeah.
know, in terms of like someone flashing middle, give them the quick pass, or making the three, or and a lot of quick catch and read and react stuff from Precious. Obviously Precious has been very up and down this season, but I think he had a decent game. And Flynn only played 6 minutes, which again, the way Schroder was playing, you kind of question that too. But I thought he was good in his 6 minutes.
When it comes to Precious, I think like we talked about before, I'm still having a hard time with Precious. I'm not gonna lie. Like
He's
there's
up and
so
down.
he's so up and down. And you mentioned the play against Philly, right? And that's the play that everyone remembers. Because I remember it too. Like it's so vivid in my mind that above the big three. And we even Fred looked at him kind of like, this is what you can do. I didn't know this. So it's just, but ever since then, I just don't see it. I would love to see more Boucher. I think Boucher, when he has minutes, he's just playing active. He's crashing the boards. He's fighting on defense and offense. So one of the questions I was going to ask you throughout the podcast, and it kind of now leads to that after kind of watching this game, is should we be looking for the development side of things, or should we be wanting wins? Because when you're looking for development and growth, it doesn't always come with wins. It's hard to really have the development and growth plus wins, adding them both. So what do you feel like you want to see more? What do you think really the organization is trying to see?
Well, I think that's everybody's problem, to be honest. And even if shout out Caleb Gray, she tried to get an answer out of Masai on Friday during the Giants of Africa game. She directly asked him the direction of this team, and
Right.
Masai was basically like, "Oh, just evaluating, and then you always know he's gonna say we're trying to win." He always says that. That's his
Yeah.
catchphrase. But when you're looking at this as a fan, you're like, you're making moves to try to win, but your team is not good enough to win. So basically, you're just stuck. I can't even say in the middle, but a little bit below the middle. So
Right.
it's like you're in your predictable purgatory, the dreaded purgatory, where it's like you're basically in the middle. So it's like, how is that winning? Because you're not going down to go back up, and you're not good enough now to go up. So where is this going? So I feel like if the front office had a direction, then the fans would be okay with
Right.
either or. If they were making moves that made sense, not the current roster construction, but moves that made sense to start try and win, I think fans would be on board with that. If they said, okay, you know what, this era is over. We gotta get something for Pascal, because obviously he's been in limbo for a year.
Right.
OG, I could see him still fitting with Scotty, but the main one is Pascal. If they wanted to say, okay, we're gonna move on, we're gonna try and get a little bit younger, we're gonna kind of rebuild this thing. Fans would be on board with that too. But it's just the simple fact that we still don't know what the direction is. And we still don't know what the identity of this team is. Darko even said that himself after the Knicks game, where it's 20 games in and he's trying to, they still don't, they're still trying to figure out who they are. And a lot of people did not like that, because it's like, okay, dude, it's been a quarter of the season already and you still don't know what kind of team you are. It's like, it's the ultimate question mark that has been plaguing the Raptors for the last 2 years of where is this going. So I can't say that I can be satisfied with what the Raptors are doing or the direction they're going, because no one knows what it is. No one
Right.
knows.
Right. The one thing that I thought was, and maybe cause I normally watch Masai pressers and all that. I've never
Mm-hmm.
heard Masai fully commit to saying he's building around Scotty Barnes. I'd never heard him say that before. And he said that with Kayla Gray. When she asked
Yeah,
him, he's
I
like,
was just about to say it.
he
Yeah,
said,
I
I'm
was.
building around Scotty. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
So you are fully admitting now that it's Scotty's team. Like even Fred kind of alluded to it, and we all obviously see it. I never heard Masai actually say it until now. Like, okay, we're building around Scotty, and I feel like if
Yeah.
that's the case, then build around him.
And he didn't mention Pascal's name. He just said Scotty.
He just said, I'm building around Scotty. We have
So
guys like Pascal and OG. So he's like saying Scotty's our guy and
yeah.
OG and Pascal are our seconds.
So
So I'm shocked that he did that.
if you're in Pascal's camp, that's just another question mark because it's just like it just feels like everything regarding Pascal for over the last year has been kind of slighted, where it's like he has to prove something that if in his eyes he feels like he's already proven. So what gives? So yeah, I just I'm just watching the games, letting the games go by, and trying to piece this on the fly. But it feels like at this point every game's the same game. You don't know which Raptors game team you're gonna get on a gamely basis or on a quarterly basis because
Right.
you saw the Jekyll and Hyde Raptors flip about 2 or 3 different times in this one game alone.
Right.
So
Right. It's one of the hardest things. And there's probably like there's Pascal propaganda on Twitter. And I feel like
mhm.
there's me right there who's just like such a Pascal fan who just believes in like all of Pascal's abilities. Now I get it. He can't shoot the three. And I'm probably one of the people in the camp that says, okay, then only shoot two threes a game. Like we don't need you to shoot like 4 or 5 unless you're hitting them, then of course you can shoot them. But I'm probably one of the few people who are like, Pascal, do what you're good at, and Scotty, do what you're good at. But they just need to have the team around them to help. We like Jakob Pertl, but it doesn't help. Jakob Pertl is not gonna help them win games like down the future, especially and exploit what Pascal and Scotty are good at. That's what we all want to see. And you're right. At the end of the day, I think we're all just kind of like we all just want to know where we headed. Like where are we headed? Are we headed to
Well,
Detroit or where?
I mean, we're and I can't even say you're gonna get an answer because you might not. But the next chance at getting an answer to what you're looking for is you got to go to February. You got to go to the trade deadline
We're waiting till February for sure. The next 20
because
games, Dennis Schroder said it. He's right. The next 20 games are the most crucial 20 games.
yeah, because
If they don't win,
if we go 20 games from now, they're 3 games under 500 now. They're 9-12, and say at the 40 game mark of the season, they're and I don't think they're going to be this bad, but let's say everything goes to hell and they're 15-25. Then it's like, okay, you have to do something, right? But they've had a pretty tough schedule to start this season.
yeah.
They've already played Milwaukee twice, I believe. They played
Milwaukee
Philly
twice, Philly
twice.
twice,
Yeah,
Boston twice.
they Boston twice. So they've had a Orlando that happens to be good. They've played them,
Yeah.
and they haven't played like the Charlottes of the world, which they're going to play next. Just scrolling through their schedule real quick.
Atlanta. Like Atlanta's
Atlanta's
same as
mediocre,
them.
but their schedule gets a little bit easier over the next stretch. Outside of Denver and Philly again, you're going to see Washington again. You're going to see Utah. You're going to see Detroit. So it feels like if I were to make a prediction, they're probably going to be like 19-21, and they're right at the mark where you still don't know what's going to happen.
And that's the worst thing. That's the worst thing. Because if they're 20-20 in the 40 game mark, then we're back here. We're back here.
Yep.
Like, what is next?
Yep.
It's almost we have to be 15-25 for us to then because I understand because I'm team patient. I'm team. Let's just see. Let's
And
just
I'm not trying to say I'm out here actively like rooting for losses and saying, yeah, man, I hope they lose so they finally do something. It's kind of because at the end of the day, I'm still a fan. I don't want to see my team lose games. So
right.
it's still a weird feeling for me. It's just like, and I had this debate with people a couple seasons ago when they wanted to tank, but the Raptors moving the other direction, ended up winning 48 games, ended up being the 5 seed. When people wanted to tank, I was just like, I don't want to tank
I
because
never want to tank.
I mean, I see why people would want that. They see other teams rebuild, but but then on the flip side, you see teams like Detroit, who, like what is this year 4 of their rebuild?
Right.
They have the worst record in the league. You
Right.
see teams like Sacramento and Minnesota who went a decade and a half of missing the playoffs. So it's like there's extremes on either side. Philly had the most famous tanking spree of all time, and they still haven't gotten out the second round.
Right.
And they may
Tanking doesn't work.
they may never do that. I mean, it works in some aspects. It does work
Because
in some aspects, but it's
like
just it's like
tanking, who, if we look at all the title winners, none of them tanked to get there. None of them. Right? Mind you, tanking helps you trade for Anthony Davis. I get it. Tanking helps you trade for Anthony Davis to come on the team. Tanking helps you get like a James Harden eventually. So I understand tanking in that side of things, but like you said, then you become Detroit. Look at the Wizards. The Wizards won't be good for a while unless Koulibaly becomes a thing, like a special thing. It won't be anything. Sacramento had to trade the freaking Tyrese Halliburton they were all like loving for Sabonis to come to go to the playoffs. So it's like
right.
when I see tanking, OKC just mastered it. OKC are the masters of tanking and just getting such great players. But this is where I changed my name to Raptors Retool Gang because I'm all about retooling. I'm all about let's retool this
Retooling.
team.
Okay. And we had this conversation if we were gonna retool, what would we do? And we had that conversation last time I was on the pod, and I was mentioning, maybe they do something with Jakob. So so you're not pro tank at all. You want to
At all.
retool. Okay.
Because I'm old enough to have seen like the young guns. I'm old enough to believe that okay, a year after losing to Dwight Howard in like was it 5 games in the first round, like
Oh,
that
eight
it
playoffs, yeah.
wasn't pretty. It wasn't. I saw Chris Bosh leave us, and it was like LeBron, DeMarcus say we got us, but it was a long time to say before he actually got us. Like
You
I'm
don't want to go. You don't want to go half a decade with missing the playoffs
I
again.
just can't imagine if we were Sacramento. Like imagine that, right? Like imagine like dealing with that headache. I just couldn't. Even like teams like the Clippers who've been so good, right? Like I kind of like that thought. Like they've been good. They haven't. They were good with Blake and Chris Paul, and now they're good with Kawhi and PG. Like I'm okay with consistently being good. Do I hate trading draft picks? Yeah. Like we all can agree. The losing that one draft pick for Yak seems a lot. Because I kind of think Toronto had the chance to to sign him without doing all that. They almost could have signed him in the offseason. I think that could have been a thing. But I don't know. It's different. Like we said, you're more retooled than the tank, right?
I jump back and forth because I can see. Well, honestly, when you say retool, they've. I feel like they screwed themselves down that route
Yeah.
because they've made moves to further complement. I mean, to further complicate how difficult it will be for Pascal and Scotty to be at their best.
Right.
They've made moves to complicate that. So it's like, how much retooling can you do to fix this? It
Right.
almost feels like rebuilding is easier than retooling because I feel like the last few moves they've made have kind of screwed things up.
Right.
So
It's like who do you
if it,
trade for? You don't have draft pick. Like you obviously have draft picks, but like that Yak draft pick is so like weird that you wanted just to go to San Antonio this season so you can have the rest of your draft picks. Like you almost need this year to be done so you can kind of do something. It makes it harder in that sense.
Mhm.
So another thing I want to bring up. Okay, so you have to choose one.
Sure.
And you have to wait for a month before you fix the next one. You either have to change the way their offense is played or you need to change the rotation.
Oh
But
well,
you can only change
I'm
one.
I've already alluded to this already. I mean, they're not going to change the offense. They implemented. They ranked fourth in assists, the big bump from last year.
Yeah.
The Darko. This is the type of coach he is. He's preaching the ball movement and everything like that. He wanted to get away from iso ball, which is kind of come as a detriment to Pascal's game because he kind of flourishes in isolation.
He does.
But yeah, I've already alluded to changing the rotation, and I already said that should put in Gary for Dennis and have Dennis come off the bench and have Gary in the starting lineup just to see how things would look differently. You could always go back, and it's not like Dennis is a guy where it's like, okay, I have to start. He's done both all his entire career. He used to back up Jeff Teague. Then he started. He started alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chris Paul. He's come out. He came off the bench for the Lakers. Came off the bench for the Celtics. He's been back and forth his entire career, so it's really no big deal to him. It's not like you're gonna have a malcontent Dennis Schroder
I don't know
because
why I think we will though. I don't know why my brain's
you think
thinking.
so. You
I
think so.
think Dennis is such
He
a.
even said it this season where he could do either or.
I think because it's 20 games in, and it sucks. Because when they bench you, then the thought process is that you're the problem. Like, but I'm thinking, I hope he doesn't think he's. And mind you, he's a little bit of the problem, but it's more of how to make Barnes and Pascal have, like, make their talents be more exploited. That's how I see it. Right? Give
Yeah,
Scotty the ball, and then but I agree. Let Gary, because Gary's played a lot better now. Last time we spoke,
he should have played more. And
yeah,
and this is part of the this was a mistake Darko made to me. He should have played more this game, and this was part of the reason why I was a little bit frustrated because Dennis had a stretch in the fourth quarter where he made like 5 mistakes in a row,
right,
and Gary was already out of the game, and I'm just thinking to my head like, why?
right,
As a matter of fact, the very second Gary checked out and Dennis checked back in, I was like, why?
yeah.
Because just the 43 minutes of game time we had seen before that, Dennis had absolutely nothing going. And
Yeah.
Gary had gotten them back in the game in the third quarter, making back-to-back threes. He was cooking. I don't know why he was taken out of the game. And
Sometimes
that's
you
gotta
gotta
be,
go with the hot hand. You gotta go
yeah.
with who's playing best. The last 5 has to be your best 5 at the end.
And that's gotta be a little bit frustrating to a guy like Gary, where you're playing that well and you get taken out of the game regardless. It's kind of like the Warriors syndrome right now, where sometimes you see the young guys get upset because I think it was the other day where Moses Moody was absolutely cooking, and then they had to go put Clay back in the game. I think Moody didn't even miss a shot, and they brought him back to the bench, and then Clay was back in the game, and everything went to hell. And it's just like your loyalties to your main guys is that big where you can't make a little bit of a change. So I don't know. It's kind of like your loyalty to Dennis in this situation where, okay, he's having a horrendous game, but he's the starter, so you have to put him back in the game regardless, even though Gary was playing way better. I don't understand that. I don't understand that.
I think especially because like your loyalty should only be there, and this may sound bad, but honestly, to only star players. Like your loyalty, if LeBron is having a bad game, you put LeBron back on, right? Like
Yeah.
there's certain players where if Dennis not playing well, you know Dennis is cool with it. You just say, Dennis, today's not your day. You're like at that time 4 or whatever. It's not your day. Let's get some. Like Kyle didn't even finish the game.
Yeah. But then you know what, on the flip side, sometimes loyalty works out. I think the most famous coach to player loyalty that worked out in the Raptors' favor was when Fred VanVleet couldn't buy a shot in the 2019 playoffs against Milwaukee. And then all of a sudden and then Nick Nurse didn't take him out the game. Some people were like, put in Jeremy Lin. And then all of a sudden Fred has his kid and he couldn't miss a three for the rest of the playoffs. So I mean, sometimes that does pan out. I guess that's a feel thing where with a coach where you want to show faith in that player and you don't want to pull the plug and affect, because some players are finicky. You pull them, that could affect their confidence for weeks, right? Although Dennis, in this case, he's a vet.
Yeah.
He's done both roles, as I've said. So I don't think that would affect his confidence per se, but I could see how that could be finicky. And Darko, if I've learned anything from Darko over the first 20 games of the season, he will give guys a lot of rope. Look how bad Malachi was playing to begin the season, and you yourself were preaching patience, and Darko was extremely patient. So Darko is not the type of guy, it looks like, to just give someone a quick hook if they're playing horrendous. So you probably will see, despite how much I've preached on this podcast, you probably will see Dennis start the next game, and everybody's going to be like, "Oh my God, here we go again!" After the game he just had, why is he still starting? Because a lot of I'm just going through the timeline right now. A lot of people are ready to make that switch. I'm ready to make that switch.
I that's one thing I do like about Darko, and that's the thing,
It's a
right?
gift and a curse, though. It's a gift and a curse.
It is, right? Because you want everyone to have confidence. Like Jalen McDaniels hasn't been great, but you almost want to be like, hey, I trust you to eventually shoot 35%. It's about trust, right? I trust that Chris Boucher is not going to be negative when he doesn't play one game and I need him for 20 minutes another game. It's almost like you have to establish your lineup, and in 20 games in, like you said before, why haven't you established your lineup yet? Like, why is McDaniels playing? Why isn't Otto Porter not playing
Well,
more. Like
I would question Otto, but I wouldn't question McDaniels because I've seen McDaniel stints this season and it's been rough. So I
I
wouldn't
get
have
the
me.
auto
I
now.
wouldn't have McDaniels in my rotation. I would have Otto
Me
Porter in
neither.
my rotation though.
Me neither. But I think the reason why I get the auto thing, and it's like far-fetched thinking, is that you don't need auto for the first 40 games. You need him for the next. I was preaching, I just want 40% games of auto. So I don't need Otto Porter to play every game. I want Otto to play the 81st, 82nd, 83rd if they're going to play in, and that 80, like I need Otto. I don't need him to get hurt. He has such injury history that I'm almost taking like, oh, maybe that's what we're doing.
But he's already like he doesn't even play every game. It's almost like he has a handful of games he misses regardless. And honestly, when it comes to guys that are constantly injured, I mean, the Raptors, Darko already admitted that they're still trying to figure out how to play. In that case, you have to play Otto. You can't
Yeah.
just be like, oh, we're going to save him for later in the season because you're trying to develop a consistent lineup. The biggest thing with the Raptors this season has been inconsistency. So you can't have Otto inconsistently in the lineup because how does
That's
that
true.
help? So I know he's very injury prone, but I feel like that's something if you're gonna have him in the lineup, you just gotta roll the dice on because you need some sort of continuity.
You do, and Otto is so like we just be talking about before. Like he is so valuable. He is so, and the thing is, I was listening to the Raptors show, and JV, who's like one of my favorite Raptors, is older than Otto Porter, and I'm like, how is that even like possible? Otto Porter's only 30, so ultimately, if you like
Oh,
this,
JV came in the league early, like sooner than him, I think.
that's what I'm thinking about. Otto Porter's like 30, JV's like 31 or something, and
Yeah,
like
JV came in the 2011 draft. It feels like a long time ago, but yeah. And
yeah,
then
so
and then
it's just
he didn't even come to Toronto until the second year.
second year. So like I
Yeah.
don't know. I definitely remember that when JV got drafted, because back then a lot of people didn't like the fact that Raptors were getting a bunch of
Another
Europeans.
another
So
European big after just going through Bargnani. Yeah.
so the homies are like, "Yo, what's going on? What's going on?" And I'm like, he's tall and he's good. Give patience to Kanjalo at the time. Give patience. But I think that's enough Raptors talk. I think
Okay.
we can only go crazy so much. You had mentioned this team. We're gonna talk some NBA a little bit.
Sure.
You mentioned this team, the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Simmons made a horrible. I'm not sure if he was joking. It was just
Oh
a
yeah,
shot, right?
Joe, Andrew Wiggins is Canadian. No, you should just trade him to Canada.
Kaminga's he's from Africa. Masai, Masai likes Africans. Like that is the dumbest thing. Like he's actually knowledgeable about ball to actually say these things. It's just crazy to me that he said that. But the Warriors do need some work, and I actually do think Pascal is the best player that they can get to help them. But what do you see from the Warriors? What's going on with them? Like what do they need?
What do the Warriors need? I feel like it's. I mean, they mind you, they just won a championship 2 seasons ago,
This
but
is true. This is true.
it feels like everybody's washed except Steph. A lot of times, it's just Steph hauling ass,
He's
and
doing everything.
everybody's just dragging and kicking and screaming. Draymond's had a decent season. Shocked me to learn that he's shooting 46% from three. I couldn't believe that one. But Clay is not himself anymore. Wiggins has been real off. Looney's a
Right. They're
role
losing by
player.
9. Just on a
Then you
side
have
note.
then you have your young guys like Moody and Kaminga who don't play enough. They already lost Poole because of the young guys versus the vets debate. DiVincenzo left, who was another solid role player, and you saw what he did against us last week, where he made 7 threes with the Knicks. But I don't know. It just feels like your typical team's been on top for a long time, and now they're on the tail end down. Like
Right.
I don't think you sure they can make a move for Pascal. I don't know what they could send Raptors for the Raptors to be okay with such a move. Like I don't know
I'm
for
assuming you
sure.
have to. Well, they probably want to get rid of Wiggins, but I wouldn't want
Yeah.
Wiggins. To me, give me the Chris Paul contract because I could just waive it. And I'm not trading Pascal Siakam unless I get Kaminga and Moody. Like I have to get those two. I can't get one. I got to get both. Right. I truly think that Pascal's too valuable. You can just eventually sign him. So, but I have to get Kaminga or Moody. Like that's if
Okay.
I'm Masai.
Okay.
But
And yeah, I've already talked about Moody being underutilized there. And Kuminga, this was an issue he had because he didn't even play. He barely played in the Kings playoffs last season, and he was very distraught by that. So yeah, they've had this thing where it's like they have you have your core, your decade long core of Steph, Clay, and Draymond, and then it's like you have your younger core of Poole when he was there, Kuminga, Moody, and it's just like it just felt like those guys were fighting for opportunities, and that's how the whole selfishness and guys just being malcontent. You heard that a lot last season with the Warriors, and I don't know, it just feels like, and that's why they tried to get rid of guys for vets and stuff like that. But when I watch the Warriors play, it just feels like they're a shell of themselves. I mean, all these guys their main core is well over 30. So it happens. It's not like they're doing anything bad and it's like, oh my gosh, you should be doing this instead. Sometimes you just get old, except Steph.
yeah, Steph is playing amazing. Clay is already 0 of 4, 0-3 shooting the three. Clay just hasn't been that guy. He's still a threat, though. Like, he's still a guy that if it's 3 seconds to go,
He
you don't
can
want
go
to
off. He can go off. But a lot of times, the problem with Clay is that he thinks he's the old Clay. Like you even saw it in the game where the Warriors got eliminated last season, where he single-handedly shot them out the game. Where it's just like, okay, you know what? I've missed my last 9 shots, but I have the Dion Waiters confidence because I'm Klay Thompson. So let me shoot 20 more shots and go 1 for 20.
Yeah, and he gets pretty angry when like people kind of call him out on it. But you're right.
He's very sensitive. He's
like,
very sensitive.
Clay, you're not that guy anymore. It's almost like I want to like once he embraces it, we're gonna get the shooting back from Clay. And a lot of people are saying, like you said, for Moody, hey, why not start Moody now? Why not?
Well, the thing with Clay that's interesting is because, and he's even said it, he's even admitted it that sometimes he's like, you see him even smacking his head sometimes when he makes a stupid play. I think he's thinking about his next contract.
Yeah.
And he, in his head, he thinks he can still get a max.
He's not getting that.
But he thinks he can. And I feel like sometimes that will make you take shots that you're not supposed to take. Because it's like, I can't just sit here and average like 12, 14 points a game. I got to take as many shots as I can to get in the 20 range to command that max. So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. But they're where are they right now? Let me look at the standings and see where the Warriors are, because I'm not even sure they're in the play-in tournament right now. Let's see. They are the 11th seed.
Yeah.
They had coming into tonight, they had the exact same record as the Raptors. So now the Warriors are 9-11, the Raptors are 9-12. And it's just they're like on the 3rd tier of teams in the West. I still think Denver's on top of everybody. And then Minnesota's jumped into that 2nd tier along with like a Phoenix. I guess I'd put maybe the Lakers in that tier as well.
Right.
And then the next tier would be like teams like Oklahoma City, Sacramento, Dallas. The Clippers are very weird, so I can't put them in a tier higher than that. The Pelicans, it's a big tier. And then that seems to be where the Warriors are as well. I can't even call them a contender anymore. People just list them as a contender because of their history and Steph Curry. But at some point, you are what you are. The Warriors haven't been that level since the 2022 season. They weren't that level last year. They were inconsistent as all hell. And this season, you thought they would kind of get back to their old ways, and they haven't. They're under 500. So at some point, you're just washed. And I really feel that they are.
Exactly. And then, sorry, just to even, because you mentioned standings, to look at the Raptors, now they're 11th, right? If they do go 20-20, it's so hard. The play-in tournament has made all these like teams kind of go like, well, we don't need to tank them because at least we're in the play-in, and we have 2 play-in people in Miami and the LA make it. So it's one of those things that are scary. Like with the West, the only team, the Warriors would have to pray for the downfall of the Houston Rockets, because
and I feel like the Warriors are not going to miss the play-in tournament. I feel like Houston right now, the way they started this season, it's kind of remind me of the Utah Jazz last year. They kind of started out on fire. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, but you know that they're gonna slip in the standings. Yeah. You know Houston's gonna slip in it. Houston made some good moves. They actually have something I feel like is a little bit more sustainable than Utah, but I don't think they're a 500 team. I feel that they're a little bit below that. So at some point, they'll go under 500. The Warriors will jump them. And then once that happens, the 10 teams that are in the play-in picture right now will be the 10 teams.
I agree.
I feel like that's just the one. I just feel like that's just the one correction that needs to be made.
Right. That's what even in the East, a little different because there's no the outlanding team was Orlando, but now it looks like they're gonna win some games. So it's really Toronto's
Atlanta's been the
really
disappointing one to me.
right, right. Very
But like,
disappointing.
yeah, you obviously Trey butted heads with he's butted up with two coaches now, and Nate McMillan being the second one, and they get Quinn Snyder, and Quinn Snyder has a reputation of being a really good regular season coach. Hasn't
Right.
really done all that much in the playoffs back in those Jazz days. I thought they would be better. Um, yeah, I thought they'd be better than this. Like you have Trey and Dejounte Murray, you have some other pieces. You shouldn't be under 500.
It's hard. See, like all the
They're
teams
9 and
under
11.
500, they're either like they're all looking to make that trade. That's why there's certain teams and players like I can see a Marcus Smart getting traded in the trade deadline. I can see it. Why, if you're a person that feels like you're a little bit away, why not? I know
Mm-hmm.
the contract's kind of crazy. I think Markkinen is the guy that people should be looking at and
But
to try.
why would Utah trade him? That's like he's like their main piece now.
So I think I'm a Utah guy. After Toronto, I'm a Utah guy.
Really?
I'm always been big on I don't like tanking, but the reason why I would trade marketing is because we're so far away. Like we would have to get somebody. We're too far away to get anything. So if I can trade marketing, let's trade him to Toronto. And Toronto could trade at least 2 draft picks. Because I think that would
What draft picks?
we would have to um take out the protection for this year and we would give them 2026 and 2028. But like that, it's far down the line. It's crazy. It's just
Raptors are not doing rap. This fan base would riot if the
they
Raptors
would
did that.
riot, right? But
It's
it's
like
just
you're literally trading the last few picks you have for the foreseeable future
because to me, and then you're almost like
for another power forward.
yeah, who shoots 40%? He shoots 40%.
But I'm just saying, like, I thought a part of the issue was that we already have a lot of guys playing the same position.
It
So
is. You're right. But I'm just thinking if you're Utah, just because you're so far away, unless Conte George can become the Donovan Mitchell of the class and somehow perform above expectations, you have Walker Kessler, who's a great young big, but you just need more. Like you're just not good enough yet. So to me, unless we just really tank for the next 2 years, this year's draft is not going to be great. But watch it have a really special talent, kind of like 2013 did with Giannis. And then the following draft is, I think, the Cooper Flag draft. So, like, give me Cooper. That's the guy I want.
I just connected the dots. So this is why, and I know what game this is. This is the Raptors and Edmonton game. But this is why you have to have this Raptors Utah thing in the background. I get it now.
It's just some good. I just think they have a lot of good players, like Kelly Olynyk. Like they have Jordan Clarkson. I imagine him on like some of these teams. Like he can be such a contender. I wouldn't be shocked if Boston were a team to try to get someone. I don't know what they're going to trade. I don't know how they have potentially more assets, but I heard they're looking. So maybe the Knicks even.
The Knicks are trying to trade for a star. I feel like the Knicks are at a point where they can't get much better than they currently are with this current roster. It feels like they've kind of maxed out their potential, where it's like, okay, they're going to be a second tier team in the conference, but they're
Right.
not going to get past the Milwaukee. They're not going to get past the Boston, and that's who you're gonna. If you want to do anything serious, those are the type of teams you're going to be playing in the second round. Yeah, you can get to the second round of the playoffs, but you can't take that next step. I feel like they've maxed out. They're a
They
good
have.
team, but now they are where the Raptors were in 2017,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, we're a good team, we're a 50-win team, but how do we get to from pretender to contender status?
Right.
I think that's where the Knicks are right now, where they need to do something big, but they have to
The
be
thing is,
they got to be
Donovan
careful.
Mitchell wants to go there. He wants to go. He's not going to resign in Cleveland. I feel like we're like a weeks away from a Cleveland meltdown. Just weeks away. Like I know they're 12-9, but it's like none of their games are pretty. None of their wins are really pretty. And I just feel like they're just a couple weeks away from just like something bad happening for that team. So that and he wants to go from them. Like, well, give me all those draft picks you guys hoarded. Like, give me all those if I'm the Cleveland Cavaliers, and let me really build around Mobley and Garland, my two young talent, if they really want to go that route. But it's one of those things that it's hard. But we didn't talk about in-season tournament.
Sure.
We're in the final four. How did you like, the quarterfinal games, and what are you looking forward to for this next couple games tomorrow or tonight, depending on when I post this?
It's been really exciting, and I think it's another okay. I gotta say, I was old man yell at Cloud for both the play-in tournament and well, I wasn't that like against the in-season tournament because at the end of the day, the games still matter to the
Yeah.
standings. And it's just a way to, make things more fun in November. I understood that. I hated the play-in tournament because it's just like, why are you giving more bad teams a chance? Especially the thing that I just didn't understand with the play-in tournament. Okay, say for example, and I think this happened with the Timberwolves. Like the Timberwolves are like 10 games over 500,
Right.
and then they're the 7th seed. This was what they did when Pat Bev was crying and stuff. And then I believe like your 10 seed was like a good 10 games under 500. And it's like, why does that team potentially have a chance to knock off a team so much better than them in the standings?
Right.
Like
It should be like
so
maybe
then what's
two
the regular
games
season?
under. It should be like
Yeah,
a 2-game, 3-game under.
like
Then we do
there should be a scenario where okay, if you're that far under but are still but that's a conversation.
yeah.
It's a completely different conversation. The in-season tournament has worked. Some of the courts have been extremely horrible. I hate the red courts. I hate the court in Vegas. The court in Vegas
It's
sucks.
horrible. It's like the
I don't
Phillies.
understand.
It's like Phillies court.
No, they did it after the NBA logo, obviously, red and blue.
Oh
But
yeah, I guess. Yeah.
but it's like your the whole theme for the in-season tournament, the whole color scheme. You even go back to that to the LL Cool J, Mama said knock you out, all the
Yeah.
promos. The colors are black and gold.
Yeah.
The trophy
It's black
like
and
on the
gold.
court is black and gold. So Vegas, why wouldn't you make a black and gold court, put some silver in it or something like that? Why are you going red and blue just because it's the logo? It's stupid to
Even
me.
the Golden Knights in Vegas are black
Yeah,
and gold.
it
The
doesn't make
Aces are somewhat black and gold. Like the
they
color's
they
there for you.
they
You could have done
they
it.
they fumbled this one. That's an eyesore court to look at. That's
It
gonna
is.
suck. But in
Yeah.
terms of the actual games, the semifinals were exciting. I wanted to see the Indiana and Sacramento. Sacramento already lost to the Pelicans, but the Pelicans, you got Zion and stuff, so that's still good. I didn't want to see the teams that I know are going to be probably there at the end of in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Milwaukee, unless they run into Miami, because that seems to be their Achilles heel, or when they play the Raptors in the playoffs. But Milwaukee should be hovering around at the end. The Lakers, you have LeBron. As long as you have LeBron and as long as he's healthy, you'll probably be there at the end. I wanted to see some of these teams that don't get that notoriety. The
Right.
Indiana, the Sacramentos, New Orleans. I wanted to see them go as far as they could. So Halliburton has been the star of the play-in tournament.
Holy
And
moly.
the way he took over in that second half against Boston, and it was cool. His family was there. His dad was hyping it up. He kept turning around and putting it to the back, because he had Tyrese Halliburton at the back. Halliburton is amazing to me. And it's just, I still don't, this is his 4th season, and I still don't know how he gets his shot off like the way he shoots it.
It's
And
ugly. It's an ugly shot.
but it works. But
So
you know
good.
what it reminds me of? It reminds me of 2K back like 10 years ago, where guys would never play with Kevin Martin
Yeah.
because he had that release that started from his hip. And it's just like the game would copy that. And it's like, how the hell do I get this shot off with
But
someone
once you
right in front of
perfect
me?
it,
But yeah, there's only one guy I ever played in 2K that could shoot with him. And Tyrese Halliburton is kind of like that, where a lot of times you'll see him fading back.
yeah.
And he had a shot in that game. It was probably the biggest shot of the game over Jaylen Brown, where he hit the 3 plus the foul. And it's like, bro, what is that shot?
Yeah.
But he's shooting. He's actually copying a Klay Thompson for the first 5-6 years of his career. He's shooting 40% from 3 every season. Every season. So, and it's crazy. It's crazy. Like he's a 50-40-90 guy, and I didn't see him being this good a scorer. He's averaging 27 and 12. He's a hell of a playmaker. That I knew. But the shooting, the scoring in general, like I didn't see Tyrese Halliburton flirting with 30 points a game.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And Indiana has been incredibly fun to watch. They played no defense whatsoever. I made this comparison on a different podcast where Indiana is trying to implement the style of the 2005 Phoenix Suns with D'Antoni, the 7 seconds or less, where they want to shoot right away. They don't have the talent. They don't have a Joe Johnson and Sean Marion and Amari Stoudemire. They have none of those three players. It's like Tyrese Halliburton and a big drop off to Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, who are decent players, but they're not who I just mentioned. Right. So they're trying to implement that with the no defense whatsoever. It's fun. It's not going to get them. It's not going to get them that far, but it's fun.
The thing is, like, so if Tyrese Halliburton is turning into a superstar, then he needs like a potential wing player that can help him. So like that's what everyone brings, like OG. But if I'm them, also I'm thinking of Mikal Bridges, because like a guy that can Bridges from Nets. I'm just thinking with that squad, he's a good defender. He'd be the only. Well, Turner is actually a good defender. I don't know what's happening on that team, but if him and Turner could be on that team, and then Indiana have to trade some many draft picks, but that's just down the line. But that was just a side note of Indiana. But yeah, they've been fun, and I like Boston. I'm glad they beat Boston. But oh my gosh, you're right. And Indiana versus Sacramento finals.
That would have been nice. Phoenix got screwed last night.
Oh gosh, it was a loose ball. It was a loose ball.
That was bad.
Like, mind you, I want.
It took Devin Booker 10 minutes to get to go to social media and find something from that already. So yeah, no,
who do you think is gonna win? Like, if you had to predict the winner,
I have a hard time seeing. Well, Indiana already beat Milwaukee this season in a game where Giannis had 54 points. The caveat is Lillard did not play in that game.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time seeing Indiana get by Milwaukee. I think it's going to be Milwaukee Lakers in the finals. I think Milwaukee's going to win the whole thing. I do not want this to happen. I want Indiana, New Orleans to be in the just to have something fresh and new.
Yeah.
That's what I really want. I don't think I'm going to get it though.
Yeah.
I can see New Orleans has a bigger chance of beating the Lakers than Indiana has of beating Milwaukee. But I just feel like it's going to be chalk from here on out. I hope I'm wrong.
Dame or Giannis, it's funny, Giannis scored 50 plus. They're going to score with the lack of defense that Indiana plays. One of those two guys are going to score like 40 plus points, 45.
But I just watched the Milwaukee game where they completely shredded New York and made over 23s. If Indiana wants to run and play no defense, Milwaukee can outscore Indiana at their game. When you have Dame and Giannis, and not only that, you have to just keep an eye on Chris Middleton. He's starting to get back to the old Chris Middleton, where he started, because obviously he's dealt with a slew of injuries over the last year and a half. He's starting to slowly but surely look like his old self. And if Milwaukee could get that third player going, they could be a real problem. So
Cash Money Chris. If he's on, then I do believe special things can come. Yeah, I think I'm also going to predict like a Lakers, Milwaukee. I think the league would probably like that. Adam Silver's probably thinking to himself, that's what he wants the most. And Indiana would be nice. Having a nice upcoming Indiana team would be good too.
I have a rant in my head.
Yeah, of course.
Nick Frito. I don't know if you saw this, but
the tweet that he made. Yeah.
Because you just when you mentioned Adam Silver, you just reminded me of him. And it's like, and it pisses me off. And I hope this style of media leaves. You saw it with Chris Mannix last year when it was Denver, Miami in the finals, and he was bemoaning the fact that the Lakers weren't there, even though they had just gotten swept. It's just like, you only can happily follow the NBA if the popular teams are playing.
Right.
It's like, if you're New York or you're LA or you're Miami or somebody like that's not playing, you're gonna complain. Is this gonna happen every single time? Do you even like basketball?
Like, you have to watch basketball to watch basketball,
because you're complaining about teams. Indiana is exciting, and you're complaining that they're going this far. Milwaukee, is exciting. They have 2 superstar players, and you're complaining. So, Iman tweeted this, and I totally agree with her. If you just swap the players, like say for example, Dame and Giannis are now on New York, and New York's rosters in more. Are you gonna now be okay with Milwaukee being there, or you're gonna make the same complaints? Because it doesn't make any sense. Like they have an actual more exciting team. What are you complaining about? Like, and I wish we had more national media that actually like basketball, because a lot of times the way they cover the league, they don't. It's like they watch 5 teams and then everybody else is like on the wayside, and it's just like it's incredibly annoying to watch, where it's just like if it's not the same 5 teams, they basically, it's like they don't even want to cover. Well, then you fly me there or something. I don't know. Like
I'm gonna disagree with you in a funny way, but they don't watch 5 teams. They watch LA Lakers and they watch whoever competes against LA. That's what
okay,
they watch.
I was trying to like round up to 5.
Because they watch LA and they go like, oh, LA plays Chicago. Who's on Chicago? Oh, Caruso's on Chicago. Like that's the only time that they
Michael Wilbon during
oh
one of
yeah.
these ESPN halftimes, where I think it was one of the rare. I think this was when Detroit was like 2-1. So a
Yeah.
lot's happened since they've lost 18 straight. So anyway, it was like one of those really quick halftime shows, and they showed Detroit highlights, and then they were like saying positive things about Detroit, and then when it got to Wilbon, he's like, yeah, they got Cade, and you could name another player. It's like there's just a silence, and then they went to break. It's like you don't know another player on Detroit. Okay, on
Even
national
like
TV.
this is like even back when with Shaq, right? When he's like, oh,
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about Pascal. No, I'm gonna talk about Siaka.
You mean Pascal Siakam? Yeah,
And he's like,
yeah,
oh, I didn't know
yeah.
their first names. What do you mean you didn't know their first name? Like you couldn't just
Okay,
Google it.
okay. Well, you know. Okay, to be real, you know Shaq, you know Bart. They ain't watching
They ain't
games.
watching games. They're all entertainment.
But I'm talking about the guys. I'm not talking about like former players. You can get away with that because they're former players. But I'm talking about media who never played, and
Right.
they're sitting here on their high horse, acting like, oh, we can only look at 3 teams. All these other teams are beneath our coverage.
It just doesn't
Like
make any
if
sense.
if you heard Mannix on one of those podcasts, he's like, oh, before the Western Conference Finals last, he's like, you really think the Lakers are going to lose to Denver? And just the way he said it with like such disdain in his voice. Oh, you mean the team with the should have been 3-time MVP? This is like, what are you talking about, dude?
The best player in the league right now, that guy.
But because they're from Denver, oh, they're beneath you. It's just like
It,
it really irks me, man. It really irks me. And
no, I cannot.
you're gonna see it again. You're gonna see it again, and it's just a joke. It's a joke. It's
Unless
and Adam Silver was talking about this not too long ago on JJ Redick's podcast, where he wanted the coverage to be more NFL style. And I have the perfect example in the NFL. Jacksonville and Cincinnati just played on Monday night. Pre-game, the NFL crew was hyping up the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars, who 90% of their existence have not been a good team. They've
right.
just started to become good with Trevor Lawrence and whatnot. And they were saying, hey, with all these, Kansas City not looking like they're going to be in, and Cincinnati lost Joe Burrow and stuff like that, this may be Jacksonville's year. And they were just hyping them up. They were happy to cover them. Whereas NFL, it's like, it doesn't matter what team, they will try and sell that team. Whereas the NBA, and it's like, okay, if it's not this, or this, well, then whatever.
That's one thing I no, I agree with you. We love basketball. We just love basketball. We love the
Right.
game itself. That's why I'm one of those people. When people say they want to shorten the NBA season, no, I guess I'm crazy. I never want to shorten the NBA season. I want them to play
Yeah.
82 games. I want to watch them. Like
Yes.
I generally enjoy it because I agree. Like I love Pascal. I like Scotty Barnes. I like all of them, but they can all leave too. But I'm still gonna watch the Raptors. I'm gonna always watch basketball, and I think if you're a fan, you're a fan. I know people will follow LeBron wherever he goes, and like no, but you have to love the Lakers for the Lakers. So you love Denver for Denver. Like I do. I like Utah for Utah. Like I like Utah.
It's just for. Oh my gosh! And I was looking for. Sorry to cut you off, but I was just
Yes.
looking for a reason to bring this up. You like Utah, and I'm looking in the corner of my eye of this halftime show, and I just saw the score of this Dallas Utah game. You wanna see the
Oh,
score?
I seen they got whooped.
147-97. They lost by 50.
Trade them. I'm telling you, you're too far away. Trade. This is the high. Maybe not this year. Maybe marketing's value will be higher next year because of people like Levine. But no, if Utah said we have marketing available, he would be like the hottest commodity, probably over Pascal because of his ability to shoot the three. It's just something. Pascal will probably be someone people think it could be like the next Aaron Gordon type. Even though he's more talented than that. But that's why I think Pascal and the Warriors fit perfectly. And I honestly think if you're Masai and looking at it, like you don't have to do this for Pascal, but you
That,
kind
but
of want to go.
that's something they're not going to do unless they are so bad that they have to just blow it up. Like I said, if they're 15 and 25, 40 games in, maybe that's something he'll look into. But he's not going to look into that. But I just, for the love of God, I just hope we don't get to the offseason where Pascal and OG are both free agents and it's like the Fred situation all over again, because that would be the ultimate disaster.
Yeah, and like it's not like, oh, we signed one of them at least. No, you got to sign both of them. Like after if it's like this, by February you don't trade Pascal, give him the damn contract immediately. The February 16th, give him the damn contract.
I'm a petty person, though. I'm a petty person just at heart. And if I'm Pascal, it's like, okay, why am I going to take your contract now? I've been wanting your contract for a year.
Right.
I've been saying I don't want to leave for a year. And you've basically held me in a holding pattern. And now you want to offer me a contract? Part of me
You
would
lowered
want
my
to
role. You potentially lowered my value.
yeah, part of me would just want to leave to be petty. It's like you literally changed everything that worked for me. And that worked for me is kind of used loosely because this roster construction wise has never, since Pascal's been the number one option, he's always worked in spite of that, in spite of no spacing.
Right.
Like they had him playing with Aaron Baines. So
Right.
I would be petty. I'd be petty because I really feel like he's been done unfairly.
Yeah, that's why I honestly like I'm really team I'm keeping OG, Pascal, and Scotty. I know it's not ideal. I know you kind of want that one person to get you over the top. But unless you're training Pascal for that over the top person like a DeMar and Kawhi, I just don't really see it. And like other than that, like I'm making the team around them better. Like I'll do whatever I can to make the team around them so much better. But the last thing I want to ask you, if you had to say, from 10 being it's happening and 0 being it's not happening, we should all just move on. Are the Blue Jays getting Otani? Are we gonna get Otani?
Um. Okay, you want a rating between 0 and 10. I will give you a 6.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
I'll
6
give
is
you a
pretty
6.
good.
It feels like from the reporting, it feels like it's between the Dodgers or the Jays. And if anything's working out in the Jays' favor, Jays front office ain't saying a damn thing. Not, I mean, like they normally say a bunch of nothing anyway, but they ain't saying a damn thing.
They're being Messiah. They're being
You
quiet.
already had Dave Roberts, the Dodgers manager, talking about he met with Otani and blah blah blah. And I don't think Dodgers front office was very happy with that either. It'd be funny if they fire him because he said that, and if they don't get Otani and they fire him because he said that. But it just feels like there was reports that Otani would be, wouldn't like if a team reported that, I mean, if a team came out and said that, discussed the details with him and whatnot, and they went out and did it. The Jays haven't said anything. So if anything's going to work out in their favor, I mean, there was the pipe dream of the Jays getting Otani and Juan Soto. I've seen a lot of reports. I don't think it's finalized. I've seen a lot of Yankee
It's weird. It's
reports.
not finalized, but like
It's not
it's like it's
finalized,
finalized because
but
everyone's talking about it like it is.
it's probably just they probably just have to work out minor details. It feels like he might be gone. So I hope we didn't go over all this optimism and Twitter scrolling, refreshing craziness for the last week and a half about Soto and Otani just to get neither. I can't say that'd be so Jays because over the last few years, they've gotten Springer,
Got Springer.
they've gotten Kevin Gosman,
Got
they've gotten Chapman, they've gotten players.
Yeah.
Now Otani would just kick the door down in terms of like superstardom of getting players, but I can't sit there and say, oh, the Jays don't get anybody. Like, people say for the Raptors. The Jays have gotten players.
They have.
Like George Berger did a 180 on the Mets to come to Toronto.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different from the Jays than it is for the Raptors. And another thing that's probably working out in the Jays' favor is that Ohtani is from Japan. He's not American, where it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to come to Canada, because you see that a lot with basketball with all these American players. Whereas Ohtani is like, this everywhere is foreign to me. So really, what doesn't matter? And brand
Like, what
wise,
does LA bring me? Like LA, it's summertime anywhere. And like it doesn't matter. At the time we play baseball, it's summertime.
exactly. And the Toronto, and with Toronto having a whole country at your fingertips, there's a lot of marketing and brand stuff you could do with that. Like look at all the branding stuff from Houston just when they got Yao, right?
Yeah.
And that's just Houston. So imagine what Ohtani could do here, right?
Crazy.
So I like it. It's just we need payback for Kawhi, man.
Yeah.
Like LA shouldn't be able to get everybody. You have so many stars in the past that have gone to the Dodgers, and still they've only won one World Series in like this millennium, and it happened to be the COVID season. I'm not trying to be the asterisk dude or anything, but I'm just saying. So it's just like, come on, man, you've already had a lot to work with. Let the and you got Kawhi. The Clippers did nothing so far. They still don't look like that good of a team this year. Let the Jays get something, because the Jays haven't had a premier left-handed hitter since probably Carlos Delgado. Like their lineups have all been so high righty. Even a few like the bat flip Jose Batista playoff teams. Batista righty, Encarnacion righty, Tulowitzki righty, Russell Martin, Josh Donaldson, who was MVP. Everybody was basically a righty. The Jays haven't had any versatility like this in their lineup. And I'm just talking about Ohtani as a hitter. What about the season? Because he's not going to pitch this season because of his surgery. The next season when he could do both, like I don't know, this would be so fun. Let us have this, please. Let's just have this one thing.
I keep thinking like the Dodgers are like because I do like the LA thing is big. It's LA, right? It's LA. They have a big Asian population, but we have a big Asian population as well. So it's not like we couldn't compete with it. I think Blue Jays tickets will be through the roof if we got Ohtani, and it's just like,
I mean, they already are.
But I just the thought process of Ohtani has decided to sit down with the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays should already be like, whoa, we got the best player in the world sitting down with us. We're clearly building something here. Clearly. Right?
Yeah, well, I feel like the Jays have to do something, because honestly, Jays games were not very fun to watch this past season. I know they made the playoffs. I know they won, a decent amount of games, but it just felt the pitching and the defense was dragging this team. The offense, like
something was
Vladdy had a disappointing year. Just numerous guys you just couldn't hit.
Yeah.
You need a punch, because fans weren't happy.
I don't.
I mean, look at the playoffs against the Twins. They scored one run.
It was, especially with all the major hitting we have on the team, you would expect something a little different.
Everybody was talking about Jose Barrios being pulled too early, but dude, they scored no runs that game, so it didn't matter who was pitching.
Doesn't matter.
You can't win if you don't score.
That doesn't matter. So, especially with that squad that we all thought was like a hitting nightmare. Like, no, we needed more. Jamar, thank you so much. Tell the listeners what you have next going on.
You can follow me, Jamar BH, that's JAMARBH on Twitter. I have a recap of this very depressing Miami Heat game. I am doing a great job of selling this right now. I have a recap of that game coming up on Raptors Republic tomorrow morning. I also have a preview for the Hornets game on Friday. Hopefully the Raptors can have a better game against a Charlotte team that is going to be missing LaMelo Ball again for a while. LaMelo's such a fun player, and he was playing his best basketball before he got hurt. He's not the Steph Curry always injure his ankle thing. Maybe he needs to talk about Steph with that type, an Under Armour or something with that type of thing, because it's happening too much now. Like he's too much of a talent to be injured that much, and it's the same injury.
Yeah, he's a good player. I think we just have to kind of wait and see. My light list to turn off. Okay, well, perfect. Luckily left. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and comment below, and we'll talk to Jamar again. Peace.